Hi, welcome you all for today's session, which is all about operating system services. What do you all mean by services in general? It is the basic need that is to be provided by any system to the end user. So, let us see what are the basic common services that are provided by the operating system. So we can call it as user interface, which is the first common service that any operating system has to provide. So what is nothing but user interface? User interface is nothing but a common intermediate in between the user and the system, where the user has raised a request to any call. We call it as a user interface, or in general it is a platform for interaction to be done by the end user to the operating system. So the user interface is again subcategorized into a command line interface and batch based interface and graphic user interface. So command line interface is where the user interacts through a commands, through a command prompt. It can be a command prompt in Windows operating system, and it can be a terminal command prompt in any Unix operating system. So this is what we call it as a command line interface. So what is batch based interface? Any multitasking jobs which has been raised as a part of request to the system in terms of jobs, okay, means any task to be done has to be properly scheduled, and then the operating system has to respond back to that particular scheduled job. If we take all those set of similar jobs together, we call it as a batch. So the all set of similar jobs, or all the set of request of jobs, will be together combined as a batch and is being raised requests to the operating system. So in turn, operating system has to reply back to the batch that has been raised as a request from the end user, that we call it as a batch based interface. Okay, so what is graphical user interface? So a graphical user interface is nothing but it is a interaction that has been happening from end to end using a display mode or a user graphical mode format. It can be with regard to the change of the background. It can be with regard to device driver interface, with regard to changing of the volume of a particular microphone, or it can be with regard to changing the base wise of the volume. So these all come under the category of a graphical user interface. So it's all been told. So the next common services, I can say it as program execution. What is program execution? Means any operating system should be capable to consider any loaded program into its memory, and it should be capable to execute that set of processes which have been part of that program. In the sense, it should either terminate normally, or if there is any problem or any error during the execution of a particular program which is part of a memory, you should at least say that it is in abnormal state, which we call it as a forceful state. I mean, in the sense, if there is any error also, it should be in a stage to reply back to the end user. So that can be one of the common services that we are considering. The next common services, it is file system manipulation, wherein the operating system has to provide to read, to delete, to write a particular content, or it can be a folder which we have saved in a particular disk drives. So it should also provide a permission management to provide certain security to a file, to any file. Let me take an example of this. what we call it as a file ownership to a particular file. You would have observed when you get certain emails with secured files, it can only be opened or it can only be accessed only when we are typing our date of birth. So this is an example of file ownership to that particular accessing of a file. So the the operating system should properly provide a protection or a permission management to any file. Also, it should provide a proper access to the file. It can be with reading of a file, and it can be with regard to write of a file, or it can be with regard to update or delete of a particular file in a folder. Okay, so the next the common services is all about input of a device and output of a device. Okay, it can be any peripheral devices. The data should be well managed to transfer among end-to-end devices or end-to-end users. So it can be either transfer of a data or gaining of a data or a retrieval of a data from the other device. So the operating system should provide a proper input and output operation. Okay. So the next common services is it should be more reliable in order to share a particular files from end-to-end devices. It can be within the local remote end share system, or it can be from the end to the other end system in the networking. So the operating system should provide a proper communication system among the systems or among the devices. Okay, so there shouldn't be any loopholes when there is an intercommunication among the systems that has been happening. So this is about communication system. So let us go to the next category or one of the common services of the operating system. As we all know that all the recent operating system, it is all with the multitasking operating systems, wherein there will be multiple jobs that will be passed to the kernel or an operating system, and as a operating system, in order to respond back, it has to properly allocate the resources to all the requests that has been raised by the end user. The end user can open a document file, he can open a web browser, he can also be opening some photo editor. All these are being multitasking jobs that has been happening within the individual operating system. So the operating system should provide a proper resource allocation to all the requests that has been raised by the user. So this is one of the common services that the operating system should provide. Okay, so the next is all about error detection. It is a common word that everyone knows. So what is error detection? The operating system should be more feasible in order to know where the delay or where the error that is been happening within the system. It can be with regard to the hardware. When we take with troubleshoot, we will be knowing what the problem that has been faced, and it can be with regard to the network facilities, or it can be with regard to the delay in storing a particular file in a device. It can be any services that has been there. The operating system should be more robust and reliable in finding the error that is taking place during the execution or during the transfer of a file, or during usability of a program. So the next thing is accounting. Of course, every user will be opening a particular contents. He can be transferring the files, or he can be doing some works related to text files, whatever, with regard to the executable file or any files. The operating system should be keeping track of that particular user with regard to the usages of the resources that is being provided by the operating system. So that is what we call it as accounting. Okay, the very simple example that I can say is, you can see what are the recent documents that has been opened by an operating by an end user when you go to the when you click on start button. And also you can also have the usage of a memory or the statistics of your usage of operating system by clicking on a task manager in an operating system. So the last services is protection and security. It is a nomenclature, it's a common name that has been provided in order to provide a security to the operating system with regard to the file, with regard to with regard to protection to the operating system itself. So we have come across firewalls, we have come across antivirus, which we have got updated to our operating system. So these all will take care of the protection and security of an operating system. So these are the common services that every operating system should provide to an end user. Thank you so much.